Hey guys, and welcome back. If you don't know who I am, I'm Angelica Nagy, and this is a literary odyssey where we talk about books and honestly, whatever else I want to talk about. And today in our video, we're going to be talking about getting kids to want to read. Getting kids to want to read is probably the most common question that I get as a teacher from my students' parents and even my friends who have their own child. And I promise you the answers are actually easier than you think. And so in this video, I'm going to provide you not one, not two, but 13 ways that you can encourage your child and even your teenager to want to start reading more, and ways that you can become an active participant in their reading journey. Tip number 1. So first of all, it starts with you. Children are tiny little sponges with a massive amount of absorbency. From the ages of infancy to 12 years old, children learn and maneuver the world based off of what they see their friends and ultimately what they see their family members do. And so if they personally see mom, dad, or siblings, or whoever is their guardian reading, they're more likely to read themselves. What that means is if you want your child to be interested in reading, you yourself have to read. They need to see you reading. And a couple of ways that you can do that is by placing a book on the stand right by the sofa, placing a book on your end table by your bed, carrying a book at all times with you so that whenever your child is with you and you have downtime, such as probably waiting at a meeting or an appointment to be called, you can pull out that book and they can see you reading. Reading starts with you. The child needs to see you personally read. Tip number 2, creating a routine. So going off of my first suggestion of your kids actually physically seeing you reading, you and your child should create a daily routine in which you read together. And if honestly you can't read together for whatever reason, because we all have our own personal lives and our different work schedules, helping your child to create a habit of reading daily or a routine can encourage them to read more. My children personally see me listening to audiobooks in the morning and then reading a paperback at night. How my children and I personally prioritize reading is through bedtime, just like so many other people. I allow my children to pick the book that we're going to read together. Children want to feel like their opinion matters, and giving them an opportunity to be responsible for the book that you read together gives them an opportunity to take on that responsibility for themselves. Sometimes or oftentimes we may read before nap or we may read before bedtime. We often try to prioritize before bedtime, and we try not to miss that. That is our routine. But once again, if that doesn't work for you for any other reason or for any reason at all, you and your child should find what works for you by taking the time to sit down and coming up with a time where you two can sit together and read together. Tip number 3, choice. Going back to choice, like I said in step 2, where the child chooses what you read together. Do not force a child to read what you want to read or what they don't want to read. I am a huge reader, but I can't tell you how many times I rebelliously did not read a book because someone just simply told me I had to read it. Instead, you know your child. You know what your child likes. You know their interests. You know their dislikes and their hobbies. So instead, try to locate books that reflect or cater to those hobbies. A very easy way to do this is by visiting a bookstore together and allowing your child to pick out the book they want to read. And 10 out of 10, they will choose a book that reflects their interest. If, however, you buy a book based on your child's interest and they don't want to read it, often than not, this is due to the child feeling like the book is too hard. If this is the case, this actually gives you a great opportunity to ask your child if you would like to read the book together. This saves them the embarrassment of struggling, and it also gives you the opportunity to bond with your child by reading together. And to me, that's a win-win. Tip number 4, fluency. In my time that I've been teaching elementary, I have learned that those kids who are reluctant to read are doing this because they actually feel that reading is too hard and that they're ashamed of their current reading skill. And so the way that I personally combat this is through fluency. So if you do not know what fluency is the act of doing something with ease and accuracy. So something that someone can do on their own. And so in my classroom, the way that we combat this not wanting to read and building fluency is through Poem of the Week, where we have a poem and we read the poem every single day to become familiarized with the words. We also do what is called book bins. And book bins are where it's just boxes and the children can put 2 to 3 books in there that they personally feel they can read on their own with accuracy from cover to cover. And so whenever I personally want to challenge my children to read a more difficult book, to build their confidence that they can do this, we pull out our book bins and we first read the 3 books that they can read on their own. And this builds their confidence that they can read more challenging books because they already know how to read. And so you can do that at your own home by creating your own book bins where you allow your child, don't select them yourself, but you allow your own child to select the 2 or 3 books they feel they can read on their own. And then before you decide to read a more challenging book, try to read these books in the book bin first to develop the confidence in your child to want to read more challenging books. Tip number 5, make reading fun. You can make reading into goals. You can make reading into games, okay? And often what I do in the classroom or what I do with my children is to create a goal together. An example of what this would look like is a weekly goal. So if you decide together that the goal is to learn 1 or 2 new words a week, you can make a game of that. Or if you guys want to read a book a week or a book a month, that is a goal that you come together and decide on. And then when they reach that goal, they can receive a prize. Oftentimes, this can be something simple as going with mommy or daddy or whoever their guardian is to go get ice cream. Or you can even make it to the point where if they finish this book or this goal, they can go out and buy a new book, continuing the cycle and the goals. Just make reading fun. Reading does not have to be boring. It does not have to be challenging. It does not have to be something that you do to calm down. Make reading fun. Tip number 6, progress, progress, progress. Children, and I think it morphs into adulthood too, are very competitive. Okay, they like to challenge themselves. They like to see that they're better than other kids, or that they can become better than what they were a week from today or whichever day. Children like to push themselves. I don't think I ever personally met a child who wanted to fail or who desired to fail. Children love to succeed. In order to build confidence in a child and help them and encourage them to want to challenge themselves more with reading is through progress. And what I mean by this is going off of my last tip where we talked about creating a goal or a game. Progress means showing the results of that game or that goal. Let's say, for example, you choose the goal of reading or learning a word or 2 words a week. taking a simple notebook and writing those words that the child learned, and then reflecting on those lists 2 weeks, a month, annually, whatever works for you, and showing that child just how many words that they learned is going to encourage them to want to learn more words. That's just the way our brains work. You can even do that with the goal of reading a book a month or a week. Creating a list, a running list of all the books that you've read in the 52 weeks of the year, will encourage the kids to want to continue to add to that list. That I don't know how to explain it, but we just love to see ourselves grow. And so children seeing the progress of their goals will encourage them to want to read more. Tip number 7. So let's say, even despite showing your child his or her progress and making reading a game, they continue to refuse to read because they believe that they can't do it. They're ashamed of their own skill level compared to that of their peers, or they are afraid of making mistakes. This is your opportunity to show your child that mistakes are okay, that they are not a bad thing. Show them that many things were produced through mistakes. Read about many people that overcame obstacles despite mistakes. Even go as far as together creating an experiment. A fun way to do this is through baking or creating a recipe. You guys have a recipe in front of you. Creating the recipe wrong on purpose the first time to see the mistakes and how you can learn from them, and creating the recipe the second time, learning from the mistakes in the correct way, can show them that mistakes are not the end of the world. They're necessary for us to learn and to grow and to improve. So, tip number 7 is to show your children that mistakes are okay. And that in reading, you're going to make mistakes. You're going to pronounce words wrong. But you're learning, you're growing, and you're becoming a better reader. Tip number 8. And tip number 8 is my baby. Tip number 8 is making reading come to life. Okay, a few ways I help my students to bring books to life are creating drawings of what we believe the characters and their settings look like if the book has no pictures. We also read a book as a whole group, and if there's a movie, we watch it together and they go berserk seeing the characters go from the book to the big screen. Another way that you can do this is gathering a object from that represents the book and telling them that this object is an important piece to the story and that we have to figure out what that is. Okay, so an example of that is, let's say there's a story about a creepy evil doll, because that's very common. What I would do with my children or my students is go out and buy, a simple, very cheap doll and display it in front of them and say, this is a big part of this book. And we have to figure out why. And so that makes their minds go crazy to the point that they're like, we need to read now. We need to figure out why this doll is important to this story. So it's creating mystery in the children's minds. It's creating excitement and enthusiasm. They just want to know. So there's so many ways to bring books to life. You can create recipes from a book. That's one of my favorite ways. And if you see on my channel, I created the chocolate pie, Minnie's chocolate pie from the help. So that's my way of bringing my books to life. So make reading fun and make the books come to life. Tip number 9, connection. So I know a couple of you are saying, okay, Angelica, these tips are amazing, but I don't have little babies. I have teenagers. And honestly, these tips will still work with your teenagers, You can still read a book with your teenager and watch the movie. You can still make a recipe and, make it with your child or do the experiment. However, when it comes to teenagers and older kids, I have learned through my personal experience that connection is key. And what I mean by that is teenagers often feel all these emotions rambling inside of their bodies, and something as simple as a breakup can be catastrophic to them. And we all know that the quickest way to make a teenager shut down is to tell them what to do or tell them how they should feel or try to give them advice when they just want you to listen. If your teenager is going through something hard or even just something easy, finding a book where a character is going through the same thing as your teenager can often help your teenager to connect with the character and be more enthralled in a book. So what I mean by this is I've had friends who have had a loved one pass away. And while I personally will never try to imagine what they're going through or pretend I even know what they're going through, I would personally slip a book somewhere that they would find where the character themselves have lost someone and have slowly overcome it. I'm not saying that I'm telling the person to get over their loved one, but I'm telling them through the message of the character in the book that not that it gets better. This is hard to because I feel like there should be no eventually it gets easier or eventually you get over it. I don't believe that. But characters can help people cope. That's what I'm thinking of. But say, for example, you have a teenager and they're a happy-go-lucky teenager and they love school and they want to be a doctor. Finding a book where the protagonist is achieving her goals or his goals is a way for your teenager to connect to the character. So, simply put, when it comes to older adults, it is very important to find books that they connect to the character with. Or if they're into self-help books, finding books that they connect their interest to. So when it comes to older kids, connection is key. Tip number 10, it does not matter how much money you make. I promise you, you can afford books. I've had a lot of parents and I've had a lot of meetings where we talk about the importance of a rich print environment at home. And sadly, me as a reader, I know how expensive books can be. But I promise you, you have more access to books than you realize. A few ways that you can get books for pretty much nothing or for free or cheap. You can go to your public library. You can go to your child's school library. You can go to the Goodwill, donation. You can go to friends and family, even co-workers, by simply asking them if they have books that they no longer want. And my favorite way to tell parents how they can obtain books for their child is through their teacher. Almost 100%, and I'm that confident, almost 100% of teachers in their classroom have a classroom library. And so if a child wants to read at home, but they have no books, they should be able to ask their teacher. Personally, if any one of my students asks to take home a book because they want to read, I would tell them they can take as many as they want. If they wanted to take 100, they can, because I'm going to be jumping off the walls that they want to read regardless. So I don't care how many books you take. But I know some teachers, they invest their own money because we all know teachers don't make a lot. So while the child can ask their teacher for a book, this is a great opportunity to teach your child to respect other people's belongings and to be responsible in bringing them back. But personally, me, I will give my students as many books as they want, and I don't care if they bring it back, because then they can read it over and over and over again in their house. I promise you do not have to be a millionaire to get access to books. Tip number 11, and as you realize, I didn't put up my fingers because I don't have 11 fingers. But tip number 11, there is always an option. There's always a way. So if you've been listening to all my tips so far and none of them resonate with you for whatever reason, and you really feel like you just can't find the time or the resources or whatever it is to actually create a routine of reading with your child, I am 100% sure every single child has some form of electronic device. And there are millions of educational apps out there, free educational apps that you can place on their devices. Now, the key to this is to find apps and resources, digital resources, sources that don't feel like reading. Okay? Kids don't want to read if they don't want to read. And if you want your child to read while you're away for any reason, you should find apps that don't feel like reading. So going back to interests, maybe you can find an app where their favorite cartoon characters are probably reading or going through some type of educational journey of whatever it is. If you cannot be with your child, but you still want them to read, and you know them bad boys is going to be on tablets or phones, find websites, sources, tools, apps that are educational, but fun. It goes back to fun. Tip number 12. Don't ever stop being innovative and creative in ways that you can encourage your child to read. There are so many ways to encourage your child to read. Well beyond this video, you can Google search millions of ways to encourage children to read. Your job as a parent is to never stop finding ways to make your children love to read. So you continuously go on Google, watch videos like this one that help you as a parent to take the guessing game out of it and give you tips and resources to help your child become a reader. Some of the other ways that you can encourage your child to read if they don't want to read is through drawing. If you have an artist in the family, instead of reading stories, they can create them. They can draw pictures, just random pictures, and then you together can create an epic or a story of based off of the characters that they draw. You can also encourage reading through writing, allowing them to journal, create stories themselves. I know when I was a child, my mother probably didn't think that this was happening, but one of the biggest ways that my mother blossomed the reader in me was by buying me a journal every single month. Even if I didn't finish it, she would buy me a new journal every single month and just let my mind go crazy. And in this journal, I wrote about everything. I wrote about my own life, and in my mind, I was pretending like I was, my life was some type of story that one day someone will read and think, oh, she was cool, which I wasn't. Or I would just write stories, and sometimes I would just release everything. Like if I was angry at someone and I didn't want to tell them I was angry at them, I'd write a really angry letter. The only thing with this is, please, parents, respect your child's privacy. If they go down the route of writing stories as a way to encourage reading, you need to respect their writing if they don't want you to read it. Please do not take their journals, diaries, notebooks, whatever they use, and read it behind their back if they didn't intend for you to read it. If that's your way of personally justifying yourself wanting to know the ins and outs of your child's life, I promise you there are different, more positive, more effective ways to have your kid or encourage your child to trust you and to let you into their personal life. But that is not the right way. And I promise you that in your pursuit of them telling you their life, if they catch you, there's more chance that you will never gain that trust back. I'm not saying this happened to me. My mother respected my journals and my diaries, but I've had many friends, and we've seen it in many movies. Respect your children's belongings, just like you would want them to respect yours. So when it comes to writing, please, unless you ask them permission to read their writings, do not snoop. And lastly, tip number 13, and I cannot stress this enough. I hope my eyeballs are big enough that you understand the importance of this. Do not ever use reading as a punishment. Do not ever use reading as a punishment. What that means is if your child gets in trouble and you take away all their belongings and you're like, here's a book, read it. Or if your child is energetic and running around and you've had a stressful day and you're like, you know what, sit your butt down and read this book so you can calm down. What this does is it creates the opposite effect of what we're trying to promote here in this video. And why even watch the video then? Do not use reading as a punishment. All it does is teaches kids that reading is boring, that reading is not a good thing, that reading is a punishment. Only, please, for the love of all things, only use reading as a device to connect to your child, a medium to explore your mind, explore your creativity, to read, to bond. Don't ever use reading as a punishment, because then this video would have been for nothing. Your child will not read. So those are our 13 ways to encourage our students or our child to read. If you stood this long, congratulations. I know sometimes I was like all everywhere and energetic. I was happy, and then I was like, ugh, But if there's anything that you took away from this video, it would have been a success. Teaching our kids or encouraging our kids to want to read is not hard. As long as you find the time to do it with them, create a routine, make it fun, you're good to go. So with that being said, please like and subscribe for more videos like this. And until next time, happy reading.